Let's get back to today's big story. The Supreme Court ruled on two blockbuster cases this morning. The justices are rebuffing President Trump's executive order to limit birthright citizenship. They also ruled that states may ban transgender students from playing on girls' sports teams. So joining us now is Jordan Fisher, the senior reporter covering the U.S. Supreme Court for Bloomberg Law. Jordan, it's great to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Great to be back, Marcella.
Let's start with birthright citizenship. This has been considered settled law for generations. Talk about why this case was so significant and what message did the Supreme Court send with today's ruling?
Right. Well, the Trump administration really wanted to return this to the realm of political controversy. And so in that way, they did score a win today, even though they lost the vote. The court ruled 5-4 that the 14th Amendment bars bars the Trump administration, the president, in this executive order from redefining birthright citizenship, and that it guarantees citizenship to almost anyone born in the United States, with a very few number of exceptions, namely the children of foreign diplomats. It was a difficult case because, as you saw with a 5-4 vote, several of the members of the conservative bloc took a very different reading from the majority and aligned much more closely with the government.
The Trump administration obviously has been arguing that the Constitution has been interpreted too broadly for decades. Talk about why the court rejected that argument and what this means moving forward. How difficult would it be to change birthright citizenship in the future?
Right. Well, what the majority found here is what the court has held for 100 years, and what legal scholars and historians would say would settle law, which is that the purpose of the 14th Amendment, this is what Chief Justice John Roberts wrote, was to settle the citizenship question once and for all, which is to say to provide citizenship for everyone born in the country, not just the children of freed slaves. That is the direction that Justice Clarence Thomas took in his dissent. As to overturning it by legislation, which President Trump did suggest today on Truth Social, would be very difficult. This is now a constitutional ruling, not just on a statute that's existed since the 50s. Congress may be able to chip away at the edges on things like birth tourism, but that would be different than the question of birthright citizenship itself.
Let's turn to the transgender student athlete ruling. Supporters say this is about fairness in women's sports. Opponents say it's all about discrimination. How did the court weigh those kind of competing arguments here?
Right. So like with birthright citizenship, there were two questions here. One is this federal statute called Title IX that protects women's access to sports. The other one was a constitutional question, this one being the Equal Protection Clause. In both cases, the majority said that the transgender athletes' claims would lose. What they found is that states do have the right to maintain youth sports for girls, just for girls. Now, several of the court's liberals agreed with that holding on the Title IX portion of the ruling, but disagreed on the constitutional question and said that they've really foreclosed any future claims potentially by transgender athletes.
And talk about what this means for the future of legal fights over transgender student rights in schools. Did this only apply to athletics, or could it play some kind of role in that in the future?
Yeah, that's the big question. The Equal Protection Clause part of this, how that plays out is yet to be seen. A lot of people think it's somewhat catastrophic for transgender litigants in the future who may want to make claims that they're being discriminated against by state or local or even the federal government. The court in the past has declined to view transgender individuals as what's known as a suspect class. What that means is that they would get heightened protection, heightened scrutiny in courts. Today, this ruling seems to be a further step away from that.
You know, the defining theme of this Supreme Court term was presidential power. What is the lasting impact of this term?
Yeah, absolutely. The court took several cases that looked at broad expansions of executive power, and in many cases they granted them. Of course, the Trump administration is reeling a bit from losing the birthright citizenship case today, but in other cases the court has broadly expanded the president's power to fire broad swaths of the federal government, to push away asylum seekers at the border, to reconsider whether to allow green card holders into the country on permanent status. And another thing to look at is not just the success that the administration has had in these big decisions on the merits docket, but also in the emergency docket. So many decisions this year, the court has sided with the administration, cutting foreign aid and banning transgender service members from the military. So broadly speaking, it's been a successful term for those looking to grow the reach of executive power.
Yeah, Jordan, quickly before we let you go, we also saw one news outlet retract a report today about a Supreme Court justice retiring. Have you heard anything about whether any of these justices are considering retirement at this point?
Right. Well, I would say that if any of the justices are going to retire, I don't think I'm going to be the person they're going to be going to deliver that news. But no, I haven't heard anything. I think, as happens in the news, sometimes a story maybe was just prepared in advance, got published a little early. The reporter who released that story is widely respected in the field, and these things sort of happen. But the press office at the court today made it clear that as of right now, no justice has announced their retirement.
All right, major rulings coming out of the Supreme Court this morning. Jordan Fisher, senior reporter covering the U.S. Supreme Court for Bloomberg Law. It is great to see you. Thanks so much for your insight this afternoon.